And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast, brought to you by The Loop, every Catholic's favorite morning newsletter. I am joined here by Josh and Erica. It was quite a weekend for America. We had the No Kings protests, we had the Flag Day military parade, and Pope Leo was celebrated in White Sox Stadium. Now, I was actually at the White Sox event, and I will say, fantastic. I was a little bit nervous as to the Chicago protests. I will say the protesters I did see walking by the stadium were some of the least threatening individuals I've ever seen. So I'm not sure. Good news. Didn't seem like Chicago got crazy, but the goal with today's episode, right, at least on the south side. The goal of today's episode, I want to just give a wrap up of the No Kings protests broadly. What was the purpose? What was the magnitude, as we can tell now? And I would like to give an accurate portrayal of the Trump Flag Day military celebration, also birthday celebration. I'm just shocked at like both sides of all the different stories being spun about both. Just the best of our estimation here at the LOOPcast, what went down, and then a little bit of recap of the Pope Leo celebration and where I was during that. And of course, you get the Twilight Zone. Of course, you get the good news. So what we do here on the LOOPcast. So before that, Erica.
Yeah, so today's episode is sponsored by Homeschoolconnections.com. I'm up now. Okay, homeschoolconnections.com. Are you looking for a Catholic education you can trust right in the comfort of your own home? Check out award-winning homeschoolconnections.com. It offers live interactive online classes and recorded classes for primary, middle school, and high school students taught by passionate, enthusiastic instructors who are faithful to the magisterium of the Catholic Church. Very important. These teachers love their subjects, their students, and their faith. Personal testimony. My daughter, who's in high school, she's reading the Iliad this summer in prep for ancient history this fall. And I just signed her up for Joseph Pierce actually does a high school class on the Iliad. So she's taking Homer with Joseph Pierce, who is really awesome. All right. Anyway, back to the story. Whether you're homeschooling full-time, just getting started, or looking to supplement your child's education during the summer, homeschoolconnections.com gives you the flexibility and support you need with a strong Catholic foundation. Join thousands of families around the world who are already giving their kids the tools to succeed academically and spiritually, very important, with homeschoolconnections.com. You can scan the QR code that's right up on your screen right now, or click the link in the description below and explore all that homeschoolconnections.com has to offer. And for friends of the LOOPcast, use code 25loop50 for 50% off your next purchase. Hurry, because this special LOOPcast offer expires June 27th. So homeschoolconnections.com, promo code 25loop50 for $50 off. Join me. Check it out.
Awesome.
Excellent. And of course, happy Father's Day again, a little bit late.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, guys.
All our dads out there. I actually got a card from my 3-year-old, if you can see here on the screen, to the best dad in the whole world. It is a putting green of his foot, and he has surprisingly good writing for a 3-year-old. I'm very impressed. But I had a fantastic Father's Day, and I will say at my church too, I really had a beautiful moment where we all got a blessing at the end of Mass and asked all the fathers to come up. And I was, of course, carrying my kid who was behaving pretty badly throughout Mass, but I brought him up. And I'd say truly half that church was up there. And we actually had a priest that got ordained who was a parishioner from our church give that blessing, who's a young kid. He has to be like 30. He's really young. So he was giving a blessing to all these dads, half the church up there in front. It was just kind of like, it just gave me chills. Like, this is the future of the church. And the fact that there's all these men that were there really committed, and a men among us that became our priests. It was just so cool. One of those moments I'll never forget. So shout out to all the dads, especially in the chat here today. We appreciate you so much.
You know what I got to do for Father's Day? I got to make everyone dinner, because that's what you do if you're a barbecue dad.
Yeah, but you got the grill though, so that's
actually I have the smoker.
Did you smoke the chickens like you said?
I did.
Hey, that sounds awesome.
And I'm getting conflicting reports here saying that other people in the chat said that they got a card saying they're the best dad ever. So I'm not sure.
Ooh.
I think I'm the 7th best dad in Emmett County. I think I feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
my father-in-law, I'm not going to say I'm above him. I mean, he's right next door.
That's true. Can't do that.
Got to gauge your, manage your expectations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, Todd also grilled his own meat last night because, again, grill dad. He's right there with you, Josh. But I made possibly the best hot blue cheese sauce I have ever concocted to put on the steak once it came off of the grill. It was like we ended up not allowing half the kids to eat of it because we had to have helpers. Like, this is only for people 12 and up. Sorry.
Yeah.
You got to earn your keep in this.
But it was really good. So happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. All right. Speaking of the patriarchy, we had No Kings protests over the week, and I went straight to the No Kings website to see the stated purpose. A lot of different causes, I believe, kind of tacked on here, but this is what they said that it was. So June 14th, Saturday, Flag Day. President Trump wants tanks in the street and made-for-TV display of dominance for his birthday, a spectacle meant to look like strength. But real power isn't staged in Washington. It rises up everywhere else. No Kings is a nationwide day of defiance, from city blocks to small towns, from courthouse steps to community parks. We're taking action to reject authoritarianism and show the world what democracy really looks like. We're not gathering to feed his ego. We're building a movement that leaves him behind. The flag doesn't belong to President Trump. It belongs to us. We're not watching history happen. We're making it. On June 14th, we're showing up everywhere he isn't to say no thrones, no crowns, no kings.
I mean, I think it's really disrespectful that Donald Trump's mother decided to give birth to him on the anniversary of the Army. You know, I mean,
what
that's
was she thinking?
Really uncalled for. Actually, do you know that it's not just a nationwide celebration? Do you know that Toronto got in on this and they had a parade as well?
Did see that? Yeah.
But they couldn't call it No Kings because Canada has a king. Canada has King Charles. They can't say no kings. They had to say no tyrants.
No tyrants.
Oh, come on. You're taking half the gas out of this. Come on, man.
That was tough. And I've really tried my best here for the show to get magnitude. Some are saying it was the largest protest in American history. Some are saying it was really only a couple thousand. I have estimates from news sources at this point. It's definitely in the thousands, undeniable. Some were very large. If you look at LA here, really massive protest. I think they were saying it was potentially from 50,000 to 100,000, even more. So LA was kind of the epicenter, I think, of a lot of this, but they did have very, very, very small ones elsewhere in the country. So a few cities got really large.
People that live in the LA area. So getting 100,000 people, I mean, I would think, not that hard.
Yeah. And here's one from Salisbury, North Carolina. So there's some small towns. And if you look, the crowd, a lot of people online have remarked, very old, very white. So it got as big as that and as small as this. And I will say, on a whole, just my observation, yes, of course, LA and I think Portland really got out of hand. And there was actually, I believe, a shooting in Salt Lake. But for all the protests going on all around the country, a small percentage of them were actually violent. Take that for what you will. I believe under 1% actually got violent. So that's great. I mean, if people want to protest, that's their right. All for it. So I have estimates from Philadelphia, 80,000 to 100,000, San Diego, 60,000, Atlanta, over 5,000 at the state capitol, thousands more outside. So really centered around these big cities. So my question before, did it get out of control? So Portland allowed this No Kings protest to take place, began at 1 p.m. with tens of thousands of people in attendance. It originally supposed to be a free speech protest. The focus of the protest soon was focused on an ICE facility where protesters broke glass and entered the facility, throwing rocks, launching fireworks and smoke grenades at law enforcement, injuring at least 4 officers. 4 rioters were arrested for violent activity and more to be arrested soon. I do have some footage on that. Unfortunately, what we kind of come to expect, I think, from Portland.
Yeah.
So yeah, this doesn't look great.
Yeah, Portland, Seattle, man, they're just it's a wackadoodle area there, and that happens when local political leaders refuse to establish law and order and just let the heckler veto. They let the hecklers take over and mob an area. So I mean, yeah,
unfortunately, that's kind of what we expect now in Portland. LA violence continued to get crazy. I have some footage here.
That's a separate thing. That's not the No Kings thing, though.
No, this is No Kings. Yeah. In LA.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the riots are continuing as well. So in addition to the No Kings getting out of hand, we also have continued riots.
Yeah. The anti-ICE stuff.
Anti-ICE riots. It's all, and it's kind of all combined in terms of what they're calling for. And
Yeah, and also, funny enough, in DC, there was another attempt to storm the Capitol. This
What is
It was
this?
about 60.
Yeah.
This was 60 people on Saturday stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, they're trying to run into the Capitol. For the audio listeners, this is people trying to run up.
30 of them ended up being arrested. There's the Capitol Police knocking some of them down the stairs.
Yeah. So storming the
No
Capitol
doors
school
were
again?
breached, so
Question mark?
yeah, didn't even make the mainstream media. In fact, I was assured, in an attempt to be fair and balanced and to get the other side of the story, Todd and I last night watched MSNBC's The Weekend with Jonathan Capehart, Eugene Daniels, and they were just glowing. They were so happy because what No King's Day did was it proved that all of the violence is on the right. There is no violence on the left because, according to them, there were no arrests, there was no violence, and there were over 3 million people who just peacefully took to the streets and nothing happened. And I was like, that seems strange. So then I get up this morning and sure enough, like you showed, Seattle, Portland, Salt Lake City, LA, Culpeper, Virginia, someone was struck by a car and storming of the Capitol. But somehow none of that happened at all. And I was like, how can this be? How can this be? Well, they went on to tell me that part of the reason we have the No Kings protest is because Donald Trump is acting like a dictator. And he is just, calling out the Marines, shocking. He has people being mowed down in the street by tanks, by like Tiananmen Square. And all of this, and he's arresting members of Congress, including New Jersey congresswomen. Why was she arrested? Because she was attempting, this is a direct quote, attempting to conduct congressional oversight of the Trump administration.
That's it, yes.
I was like, well, that is just the euphemism of the week. So that's how you get people who say there was no violence and there were no arrests whatsoever, because congresswomen were trying to conduct congressional oversight. It's like, well, that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah. And so, okay, to set the record straight here, this is now onto Trump's military parade. So a lot of people are saying, this is what authoritarians do. This is something that it was just for a vanity project for his birthday. So here's some images of Bastille Day, which I believe Trump himself said inspired him
Paris,
to want to do this day. They do this every year in France since the 1800s, I believe. And so here's pictures of Bastille Day. And then here comes, let's see, cool pictures from, this is one of my favorite actually from the day. So they did this parade and they had different eras of each military for the United States. So all the way back to the Revolutionary War, but you get the Civil War era, you get Desert Storm, you get Vietnam. Very cool. So they had American soldiers dress up in the different regalia. So cool. For those who are curious, the parade marked the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, coinciding with Donald Trump's 79th birthday and Flag Day. So featured over 6,600 to 700 soldiers, 150 military vehicles, including Abrams tanks, etc. It was the largest military parade in D.C. since 1991. It went along Constitution Avenue, included a festival, fitness competitions, historical uniform displays, a Golden Knights parachute jump, and fireworks. And Trump actually swore in 250 recruits. I thought this was actually a really cool moment.
That was the cool part. I like that.
Yeah. Reporting for duty, sir. Ready to commence the ceremony as directed.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations. Congratulations. welcome to the United States Army and have a great life. Thank you very much. Have a great.
I mean, it's perfect because it says, "I will follow the orders of the President of the United States," and it's just like to the lefties who have this, absolute Trump derangement syndrome. They just go, "Oh my gosh, he's doing this just to have everyone hear him obey me, obey me." It's like, or dude, just chill out. Like it is the same thing said for every president or any defense secretary or anyone, officer that's installing or doing this oath, administering this oath. I mean, it's just, again, I think this is a perfect example of where Trump's like, this will be awesome. Like maybe I'll just do this big 250th thing. And again, he actually planned it in his first term. He wouldn't have been in office.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah. Task Force 250 coordinating a series of celebrations leading up to July 4th next year, celebrating American independence, the 250th birthday of America. So we should be seeing more things like this.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted this big thing for the 250th anniversary. Like if he had served 2 consecutive full terms, it would have, it would happen after he had been out of office. So,
right.
I mean, like, again, it just cracks me up. The left can't help but fall for the bait. They're like, oh, you're just doing this to celebrate your birthday. And like in AP headlines all the time, Trump's birthday. It's like, like on the margin, did he think, maybe I'll do that on my, it's a legitimate reason enough to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. But if it's on my birthday, ha ha ha, will they take?
Can I ask you some questions, Josh? Just comment objections here. I think they were showing public perception polls that this was because this costs taxpayer money, that it was unnecessary or bad use of that. What would you say back to something like that?
Well, I mean, first of all, again, I always find it hilarious when the left makes that accusation because like during the George Floyd riots, we had like $4 billion worth of damage to American cities all across the country. This is a paltry expense compared to that. But with regards to it, like you would think that on major anniversaries, like the 200th, 250th, that you would have a celebration of your army. Like this is only appropriate. It's not like we're doing it. Like if Trump now wanted to say we're going to do it every year, then I'm like, I don't know if we want to do it every year. I mean, France says it's honor the Bastille Day. It's not like it's immoral, but do we really need it every year? But on the 250th anniversary, like that's a big mark. Like that only makes sense. Like what? I don't understand the objection to it. Like, do you never spend any money? Like I guess I don't understand that.
Yeah, and the fact is too that the majority of the funding for this did not come from the American taxpayers. It came through America 250, but we had Oracle, we had
sponsors,
Palantir, Lockheed Martin, right? So a great chunk of the money came from that. And like Josh said, I mean, it's just rich coming from people who were screaming when we were cutting USAID and with the Doge cuts, and they're like, but that's only like less than 1% of the budget, and so like it doesn't even matter. So just keep funding everything that the bureaucracy. There goes Josh. You all right?
Knocked over my water.
It doesn't even matter. And like you're like, but then suddenly they're like, oh, how dare you spend money to like celebrate the 250th of our army?
I love it when the left becomes penny pinchers. It's like absolutely my favorite.
Suddenly we care.
Oh, it costs so much to send the Marines to LA. I mean, you spend $1 quadrillion building a metro rail from LA to San Francisco, but yeah, sure, you care about pinching pennies.
Or the money sending them overseas to foreign entanglements that we should have nothing to do with, but that's neither here nor there. I don't have an issue with this. I think it's important to any society to have things that they celebrate in terms of what should be virtuous and what should be happy, and what better than to celebrate the men and women that serve our country.
I mean, it's almost an embarrassment the other way. I mean, like, think about what you do to morale if you, like, on your 250th anniversary of the Army and, like, it happens with, like, nothing. Yeah. And that was my problem with Barack Obama. We had the 175th anniversary of Gettysburg Address when he was in office, and nary a word. I'm like, what the hell is with this guy? Yeah. Like, no, you actually do care about and love your own country. Like, do you not celebrate its traditions? Like, yeah, you have an obligation. I mean, like, it's more expensive not to. What does it say about your country if you won't do something like this? I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. It matters what you celebrate. And that I actually find it a little bit embarrassing to be against this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like outrageous, but like your No Kings protest is like, I know it's so funny. Like there's so many mixed motives for them. Like some were protesting over ICE. Some were protesting over Trump's birthday. I think a lot of the elderly people were out there doing that. But
immigration was a big one for some of these.
Yeah, but to me, I'm like, this is kind of embarrassing to be against. Like,
I got
everyone
some
should be
photos sent to me
celebrating
from a protest in Minnesota. Did I show you these here?
this. Is it
Oh,
hands off our neighbors? I don't know if I can get that on the screen, but sorry. I see. I used to see a protest with hands off our neighbors picture. You know what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. This was in Chaska, Minnesota, just outside, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. This photo was sent to me with someone who said, it was 74 years. I finally got to my first protest. It was for No King's Day. And I said,
This is what you're protesting?
I said, congratulations, Mom. I'm glad you went to your first protest. She decided to send me this pics. And I said, you know what? That's good. That's good. I'm thankful that I want more people participating in our, I want more citizens participating in our politics. Citizen
100%.
engagement is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I thank God and the American soldier that we have the First Amendment right to express ourselves peacefully. So,
Amen to that,
Yeah.
man.
kudos, Mom.
Yeah.
Even though
Did you see Mark Ruffalo?
This.
Did you see Mark
Oh,
Ruffalo's
my
interview with MSNBC?
I don't
See,
ever want to hear from Mark Ruffalo.
I learned
ever
so
again.
much yesterday, guys, by watching MSNBC. So Mark Ruffalo gave this long interview to the reporter. He was at the New York protest, I think it was New York, and he was talking about how all of his rights have been stripped from him. He's like, he has no more citizenship rights any more than any illegal. He can be deported and thrown in the back of a van anytime. And he goes on and on about how horrible our president is and how horrible the Republicans in Congress. It's the weakest Congress we've ever had. And he goes, and I'm just listening to him being like, sounds to me like your First Amendment rights are pretty safe right now, Mark, because no one's coming for you. Like, no one's coming for you. You're just standing here telling thousands of people exactly what you think.
Who's going to deliver Uber Eats to his house if we don't have slave labor?
Who will scrub his toilets? I know.
Then again, that's actually the same argument that was made by the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago.
Sure was. I was there live
at White Sox Park.
Yes, I will. Don't worry.
Not a good look.
I'll give you the full
all right.
breakdown. I was there in person. Okay, and before we actually had some political violence in Minnesota, crazy. But before we get into that, Erica, we have another sponsor.
Yes. All right. So this is actually serious. So bringing it down here. If you are a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document using a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. So, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. That's why we've partnered with Home Title Lock. So you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use promo code LOOPcast30 at HometitleLock.com to save 30%, and you'll get a free title history report to ensure you're not a victim. And make sure you check out their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Go to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code LOOPcast30. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code LOOPcast30.
All right. Thank you, Home Title Lock. Okay. Again, on a serious note here, really shocking stuff coming out of Minnesota. Actually, I believe we got some resolution as of Sunday. I believe the suspect was taken into custody late last night. So, yeah, Minnesota lawmaker's spouse shot dead in politically motivated assassination, according to Governor Walz. So where, when, what, and why. So police arrested a suspect in the shootings that killed Minnesota State House Democratic leader Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette on Sunday evening. Pray for the repose of soul and recovery. I believe John Hoffman and his wife are recovering critical condition, which is good to hear. So what happened? Police said that they responded about 2 a.m. Central Time Saturday to a report of a shooting at Hoffman's home in Champlin, about 22 miles north Champlin of downtown Minneapolis. Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Burley said that a Saturday briefing that around 3:35 a.m., officers proactively checked on Hortman at her home some 5 miles away. When they arrived, they encountered a man dressed in a police officer outfit. Police exchanged gunfire with the suspect at Hortman's Brooklyn Park home, but Burley said that he escaped. He was wearing a silicone mask. They got ring camera footage now. It's really creepy stuff. And he was in a car that looked like a police vehicle. So the suspect that they eventually landed on was 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter. He worked at a private security service, so he had police-like vehicles, had access to them. Sunday, they found his second vehicle west of Minneapolis. 10 p.m. found in the woods, taken into custody. So that was last night at 10 p.m. And also, interestingly, the wife of Vance Luther Bolter, Jennifer Bolter, was detained by police for questioning after a traffic stop late Saturday morning in Minnesota. Inside the vehicles, investigators found a weapon, ammunition, cash, and passports, according to two sources. So now, at this point, a lot of people are asking about motivations. From what we can tell now, we have some clues. There was a list of 70 targets found in the car, including abortion providers and Democrats in the state. There's also a manifesto found in the car, but the police are not releasing it right now. Governor Tim Walz say he's confident it was a politically motivated attack. I wonder if we will get to see that. His roommate said that he voted for Trump. However, police recovered signs in his car for the No Kings protests. He also had ties to Tim Walz, who appointed him to the government's Workforce Development Board, and former Governor Mark Dayton appointed him to the same position in 2016. And just days before she was assassinated, Horton was the only Democrat to cross party lines to vote to cut off taxpayer health care from illegal immigrants in Minnesota. So if we're just keeping track before we get into the individual one, just in the last year, we had two Israeli.
Oh,
Where's Tom?
back again.
He has no sound. All right, I'm gonna run through the list of politically motivated attacks we've had just in the last year. So this adds to the list. But we had the two Israeli diplomats who were murdered in Washington, D.C. just this spring. Obviously, the healthcare CEO assassinated. Attacks on Tesla dealers and vehicles and owners all over the country. We had the protesters in Boulder, Colorado, who were calling for the release of hostages. They were set on fire. Firebombing of Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion in PA. The GOP headquarters in New Mexico were firebombed this year. And there have been, obviously, the multiple attempts on Donald Trump's life. So definite rise in political violence. I also looked up, this was crazy, threat assessments that the United States Capitol Police report every year. And just the increase in threats of terrorism. These are all threats to attack either people inside the building or the building itself. But back in 2017, they had almost 4,000 of these reports. And in 2024, they had 9,474. So that is a massive, more than doubling just in the last 7 years. So I think two threads here, what happened in Minnesota, and then also just the rise of politically charged violence in general. Pogo, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Hey.
I'm back.
Good to hear.
I'm going to need to figure a fix. I keep trying.
That's all right. I did just have an update to add to the Minnesota story. So he was charged. He has been charged with 2 accounts of second-degree murder and without intent to kill. Now, the right-wing Twitter went crazy over this. They were like, oh my gosh, it's a conspiracy. Why didn't they just charge him with first-degree murder, intent to, because it was clearly an assassination. Well, I actually looked it up. In Minnesota, state law requires for first-degree murder charge, they require a grand jury indictment. So that is why it wasn't like some funny business. This was just procedure in the state of Minnesota. So that conspiracy theory can be laid to rest.
Yeah, and the FBI and the Department of Justice are involved at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They've been fully briefed.
Yeah, Pam Bondi got out there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Josh, I mean, your old home state. Any thoughts on this?
Well, it's deeply disturbing. I mean, again, this is a question where this is a guy who has like a small little security place, and then he flies to Africa all the time, and travels all the time. Like, maybe I'm just not used to having disposable income because I spend all my money on taxes, tuition, and teeth. But like, how in the world is this guy going all across the world? But again, the rise of political violence. It's not that I'm not saying that there's no violence or no attempt on the right side, but there's a whole lot more on the left. That's definitely the case. Now, the Democrats have used the J6 thing, as their propaganda to try to say that the right is totally fomenting violence. But They forget about the Bernie Bro attempted assassination of Steve Scalise, and all the things you just mentioned right there. Now this guy, I mean, first of all, I do find it surprising, interesting that they're not going to release his manifesto. Like, yeah, why is that exactly? That there was stuff found in his car. Like, okay, maybe. I mean, but like, again, this could be an op. Someone could have known that this guy was going to do this, and like they threw papers in his car. I mean, like, to me, like, and like the fact that he was appointed, I tell this people all weekend, the fact that he was appointed at some kind of business council by 2 Democratic governors does not mean he's a lefty. I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of these small town, these states or whatever, like, you know, they might appoint you because, you know, you're friends with so-and-so and we want, you know, whatever. How much do they vet them to make sure that they're solid? Now, it just means it could be a lefty, but it doesn't mean, oh, that's obviously a lefty. I mean, it's not like, so like, I just kind of caution people not to get too ahead of themselves with the facts. I mean, the fact is, if this guy turned out to be a pro-life activist and he really was going to gun down Planned Parenthood, stuff like that, like, well, I'm sorry. I think that is absolutely evil. I think it's evil to assassinate people. Of course. I mean, like, it's like, this is so no brainer. And what's a little weird about social media is like, you basically have people going, I hope he's on the other side so I can say the other side's violence. Right. Like, that's so stupid. Like, you know what sucks? It's political violence.
I even saw congressional accounts. I want to say like Mike Lee was saying, like, basically trying to score political, trying to get affiliation, trying to say this like immediately. Is that a new phenomenon just because social media allows people to just do such gut reaction things, or was that always kind of the case? It just feels kind of like
social media. There's 2 things about it. Like, social media, you know, it's this ability to communicate, you know, in a rapid fashion. And if you say something that's off the chart and really wild, it can spread like wildfire, for good or for ill. And so it does kind of amplify some of like the worst instincts of humanity this way. You know, so again, like one of those things where, like, when there's a school shooting, which are absolutely tragic and horrible and terrible, and then you get, like, you know, people popping off on both sides. It's just like, whoa, it gets kind of crazy. So it should go without saying, like, we need to do better about making sure that we have a little bit less political violence. Now, I would say one of the things about social media is we have 21st century instantaneous ability to communicate with millions of people. And yet we have a political system that has kind of gone ossified. Like, the founding fathers intentionally made it so that the system was slow and that you wouldn't have rapid movement and rapid laws passed. But I don't think they necessarily anticipated the filibuster or these largesse bills that are like unamendable. Right. And so like that the Congress would basically neuter themselves and they just get up there and they vote and they do nothing. Or that you know, like, to me, the biggest thing about our politics that kind of, one of the things about our politics that drive me crazy is that you go like to the British Commons and they actually debate. They debate in you know, in the Parliament.
It's great TV, popcorn.
And they engage with each other and they ask questions and the other guy has to get up and they have to respond. But here you turn on C-SPAN and some guy's giving this impassionate speech and the camera pans and you're like,
it's empty.
Oh yeah. What is the point? Like, it's so much of it is being phoned in by our lawmakers. And so I think that's what happens, where everything matters on who becomes the president of the United States. And then he gets to appoint judges that will enforce their stuff. So we have this really weird political system where people are now fully engaged. They're not waiting for their newspaper and reading their opinions and popping off a day or two later in the letter to the editor section. They just get on it instantly with social media and share their most crazy ideas ever. And we need to be better about kind of filtering that stuff out.
100%. Yeah.
I think also ask both of you real quick, Erica, and maybe you can speak on this. It just feels like to me, we mentioned even just in the last year, the amount of political violence really shocks me. But I really only came of like political conscience during like Obama, basically. And I was like 10. So
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just feels like the decade of Trump now, I believe it's actually like decade anniversary, that there's just, I don't know if this is social media. I don't know if because the numbers truly are larger. It just feels like there's much more political violence or politically inspired violence. Is that actually true, or does it just feel like that to me? If you were to compare it,
I think there is.
Reagan years or whatever.
It's also the case where you have situations where elections, presidential elections are being decided, so closely.
Right.
Like 16, 20, and 24 are 3 consecutive elections that were decided in those critical 3 states by less than a half of a percentage point each time. 2024 was a little bit more larger of a margin, but again, when you have and because the presidency can change so much policy through executive orders, and because again Congress has sort of neutered itself, you put so much pressure on the idea of who becomes the president. Yeah, it really does cause a problem. I mean, like, I do feel like we would have a better ability to channel our political frustrations if we had a better political system, if our congressmen and senators were actually not have these big large bills where they're unamendable. And actually, if we had a House of Representatives, again, I know this sounds, this is your hobby horse, Josh, but the House of Representatives should be about 1,500 people in it, so that it's actually closer to the people, and you can have it be more responsive, and it can more represent your local area. So there's different things we could do to try to lower the temperature, obviously, but I do think part of the problem is we have a corporate leftist media, and they cherry pick stories. So they'll talk about political violence as if it's exclusive to the right, when in fact there is some violence on the right, no question, but it's a whole lot more on the left. And again, we have a mainstream media, which is a massive megaphone, which thankfully in the last 4 or 5 years, we've started to have other voices prop up. I mean, Daily Wire, Daily Signal, Catholic Vote. We're having, some of these other institutions that are coming up that people are like, no, wait a minute, these guys are leveling with me. I like what's going on here. And so there's a little bit of a sea change here. That's a beginning. But again, the leftist media, they're so out of touch. They're so tone deaf. And they're, again, I kind of laugh. Like my mom, I love my mom. She's the one that went to the protest. But she just has no idea what half of the country believes and thinks, because she's not exposed to it. And who are these weirdos? Well, I mean, I can explain it to you.
Yeah, I think a lot there. And talking to family members who are so embedded in the MSNBC or even further to the left of that world, it's almost like we live in two different countries, because the information that they're feeding on, they're genuinely frightened. They cry, they move to Australia. I mean, it's shocking how siloed we can become. And I think looking at, like Josh said, the falling apart of the system of checks and balances, the inversion of the first 3 articles of the Constitution, which is my hobby horse, that now we have the federal judges essentially telling the president how to president, and the Congress just kind of we'll let the fourth branch of government, the bureaucracy, just interpret every law that we pass because they're so vague, they have no teeth in them. I think looking at the No Kings protest and the way that they talk about Trump as this dictator who is bringing all power unto himself, I'm you missed the last 60 years where the executive branch took all this power unto itself with the agencies, with the unelected bureaucrats who have lifetime appointments, and they just roll over from administration to administration, determining what we mean by sex in Title IX, determining what we mean by citizen or migrant or what have you. And I think Josh is right that when the checks and balances start to fall apart, the temperature gets amped up among factions in the United States. And you go back and read the Founding Fathers documents, the Federalist Papers especially, but also Democracy in America, all of that early commentary, they were very, very concerned to turn down the temperature on factions because they were watching Europe fall apart. They were coming off of the wars of religion. They're in the middle of all the age of revolution. And they very much wanted there to be robust free speech, freedom of religion, and diversity, to use our modern term, in the country. But they knew that there had to be a confidence that there wouldn't be a tyranny of the majority in our country, which is why we have the system that they constructed. And as that system breaks down, the fear starts to come in that we will have tyranny of the majority. And I know that I look at go ahead.
It's a tyranny of whenever I agree with kind of your first half of your point. It's it's a tyranny of a permanent bureaucracy that is that is one party.
Mm-hmm.
They're preaching against no kings, and yet they have bureaucrats who decide everything that we're supposed to do with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, oh, by the way, we're going to trans your kids and import Haitians to replace you.
Paper straws.
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I mean, like, excuse me. Like,
I participated in
we need
no
bureaucrats
Kingston.
at the. I mean, this to me, the bureaucrats at the EPA deciding that we have low flush toilets. Like, is it the most important thing in the world? No,
Josh,
but it's like,
you're-
why is
you're
this
not-
decided? Like, this is asinine.
Right, but you're not even talking about like how many federal judges do we have now that decide whether or not we can use the military for this, whether or not like to me, there's 278 or however many federal judge kings there are around the country that decide that they can make decisions on behalf of the American people who did not elect them and didn't put them there.
Yeah, so the left is against a monarchy, but they're for an oligarchy. That's
Right.
really what it is.
Which is ironic, giving Bernie Sanders and AOC's most recent trip around America on private jets.
I'm going to
Resist
say,
the oligarchy.
unfortunately, I don't see this getting better in recent. And I don't. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not super optimistic because the element we're not talking about in all of this is I think we're coming up on a period of economic destabilization in which the previous social contract of you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, and then you get the house and you get whatever is increasingly becoming not true. I mean, how many kids graduate college and can't get a job, can't make good money? And then with AI coming in, jobs getting smashed that way, like our work lives are going to change.
We're not even ready for it. Right.
Similar to, laptops getting introduced or the internet getting introduced. Like think about how much that changed work. So I'd say all the things you said paired with, I think, a real economic uncertainty for the young people in America. Like even if you just think at Luigi, which of course, like, do I even have to say it? Don't go assassinate people. That's terrible. Doesn't solve anything. It doesn't work. But there are people,
don't respect him, and
right? But
revere him.
Yeah.
but I'm saying the reason that people are doing that, especially young people are doing that, is because they feel a lot of the pressures that I'm saying is if there's no way to get ahead, that the wealth inequality in the country is historic because it is, and the wage gap right now is stagnating relative to inflation. So I think people can't afford a home. Like there's all these things that keep people kind of happy and united. And so if you mess with economics, you mess with the immigration, you mess with the political system, you can only push that so far before you start seeing people do really crazy and extreme things. I mean, look at what just happened in LA.
Right.
Like that is nuts. And that was 20, 30 years in the making probably. And so I'm seeing like from every angle, a lot of things that would really push people that direction. It makes me nervous. I say, yeah, I don't see it getting better, unfortunately. Pray for the country for sure. But let's do some good news. Okay. We got to bring it up before we get into.
I have
Erica.
a cute kids section here. So
Please
this
do.
was, I loved this. I have a new MAGA acronym. I've decided to make it MOGA, MOGA, for Make Offspring Great Again. Do you like it? I love it. All right. So we have Make Offspring Great Again corner. We have this cute picture. This was the Vance family arriving at the military celebration parade. And like, just look at that. He's got his two sons. And then we've got little Mirabelle in her red dress, which, inside scoop, apparently, according to 2 internet sources, came from Target. So we're talking like a $15 dress, girls. This is great. But aren't they cute? And I love just like, here's a bunch of kids. Pete Hegseth's kids were there as well. And yeah, I can't get enough of kids in public life. Very cute. More children also in St. Peter's Square. So my next one. I love popes blessing babies. Who doesn't love a good picture of a pope receiving a little baby up into the Pope Mobile? So we've got actually 3 babies here. For the audio listeners, I'll try and narrate this one. But here's Pope Leo. He blesses one baby, blesses another little bald baby who's crying. Ah! And then he turns. Oh, there's one more baby. And she hands him her cookie. She hands him her cookie. Now watch.
That's awesome.
And he eats it. And he ate it.
Security's
I
got
like
to be
his
freaking out.
poor
Oh my
security
gosh,
team must
yeah.
be like, oh my gosh, he just
Like,
ate the cookie.
Yeah, a baby would
What
not
is
be
on the cookie?
assassinating me, right? Yeah. Wow, what a
But it
moment.
was super cute.
Shout out to that kid.
Little
Sharing
timeline
is
cleanse.
caring.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There you go.
All right, Josh, what you got?
Well, breaking news this morning: the Supreme Court ruled in favor of nuns fighting New York's abortion mandate.
Wait, didn't we do this 10 years ago? 12 years ago?
all the time, right?
Oh, we did it
This is-
again.
this
That's
is-
right. It keeps
this
going.
is a state
Can't
law.
leave the nuns alone.
Just bake a cake.
When New York created this abortion mandate, they said it would protect religious groups, but religious ministries that actually serve all people, regardless of faith, were left out.
Right.
So this religious freedom mandate was so strict. Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Jesus would not qualify for it.
You know, there's a problem when Jesus wouldn't qualify.
I mean,
New
it's
York.
a little strict. So anyway, the Supreme Court has ruled, send this back down to the New York courts and hey, reconsider whether or not this totally violates their constitutional rights because they're trying to force them to pay for abortion. So basically, the court saying you're being stupid. Get this right.
Unbelievable.
Sounds good.
I actually almost used that for my good news. And then I got so depressed about it. I was like, this isn't really actually that great of a news because it means that the nuns are still fighting through the court system because insane states and insane judges are still like, nope, you got to pay for abortions. Anyway.
Okay. So
but Josh, it is good. It is good.
Mine is completely unserious, but I think is a genius prank. Okay. So Father's Day in Texas at a Catholic church. Shout out Kristen Combo for the video. Apparently, all the moms of the church conspired to give their husbands a nice new polo for Father's Day that they could wear to church, but did not reveal that every husband had been given this polo. So I got the video. It was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
I understand you have some responsibility.
Yeah, so I don't know if the music's gonna
be wearing the same shirt.
Dad at this church is wearing the same light blue polo in Texas.
That is awesome. That is great.
Man,
those are wives who love their husbands. I love
that. That is a genius prank. I mean, like every single one of them is wearing.
Oh my gosh, we have to do this next year.
St. Anne's in Papal, Texas.
That's awesome, man. Shout out
awesome.
This one off. Yeah. It's just like
he looks good.
It's like pulling up to church, discovering everyone is wearing the same light.
He's laughing. Oh my gosh.
That is awesome.
That is a great video. Man. We need to put that video in the chat so people can watch the whole thing.
Oh yeah, let me.
That was great. Lady, respect. Golf clap.
Yeah, that's a great prank.
That's awesome.
It's something we can all get behind. A good harmless prank.
I love.
Okay, I actually like that harmless prank. That's good natured. You know, like
it's like no one really like gets hurt by it. It's just like no one's really the punchline.
Mocking someone, right? Yeah,
right.
Okay, like so I try to tell my kids it's like important. You know, it's good to tease playfully, not tease mock. You know, that's the difference. Like the person gets surprised, but it's like it's in good fun, and you actually care for the other person. Like it's
exactly. Can I just put an insert? I have a cultural insert here. The real reason why Friends was the worst TV show ever. People are like, okay, Erica just didn't like the sexual stuff and people sleeping around. Yes, that was very bad. But the actual reason Friends was so bad was that every single joke that they would make was at the expense of someone else. It was always like the girls mocking the guys mocking each other. And like the sex stuff was disgusting. And that was a huge part of why it was such a problem. But it was because the humor was just sheer mockery. And that gave my generation this model of just years and years and seasons of like the way you interact with people is that you mock and you tear down and it's just funny and it never hurts anybody. So anyway,
would you say that the humor, because I've never seen Friends, but I have seen a lot of Seinfeld because my parents are big time Seinfeld fans. Was the humor different in Friends and Seinfeld? Because I feel like they ran at the same time.
I think so. So Seinfeld, there was an element of the mockery for sure, like no question. But there was also, I love the physical comedy in Seinfeld that like Friends was maybe 2% physical comedy. Seinfeld, maybe, I don't know, Josh, like what would you say?
No, I think, Seinfeld had some physical comedy, but I think the best thing about Seinfeld was they would make observations on some of the absurd things about modern life. You know, like, I think about like, no, you can't double dip, you know, like, dip a chip into the dip. You can't dip a second time because it touched your mouth. They just go on and on about all these things. No, this is why you can't do this, that. And it's, they like to highlight some of the absurdities of
low flow showers.
So, they talk about clothes talkers and like, this is how you're supposed to date. And this is how you break it up. And they would talk about everyday life and people can relate to that. Now, I'm not saying they're flawless, but it was much more of a good naturedness to it, I would think. That's my thought. I didn't watch a ton of it, but
my parents would show me like they would only show me certain episodes, or sometimes within the episode if there's weird parts they cut it out. So I don't want to get on my parents about this because there are some really truly iconic, hilarious 90s. Then I also look at the clothes too. I'm like, I feel like a lot of this is back. Like a lot of the stuff that they wore, I see people wearing. I'm like, I actually like it.
Fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of.
I know this because my daughter goes, thrifting all the time now, and I'm like, my wife are like, is this 1991? What is going on with this? which I thought was bad news for fashion wise, but whatever.
Good for her.
The kids
So
liked
it
it.
looks like we have a polo wearer from that church. St. Anne's was our former parish, and our son and his family go there. He got and wore one of those shirts.
That is awesome. That's
Let's
great.
go.
Tell him to send a picture.
Oh man, I feel like I can go to any Catholic church in the country and like at least one person listens to the Loopcast. It's the best. It's like sometimes I'll run into them there. Love it. Shooting weddings all over the country. It's definitely one of the blessings. Okay, so I was in Chicago yesterday, and we had a celebration of Pope Leo. So it was funny. I did see people sharing this all over the place, but a lot more of the attention was on the No Kings protest, which was funny because this really wholesome event at Wright Field happened. So here's some pictures from the White Sox Twitter account. So we had an address from Pope Leo, actually part of it specifically to the youth, but I was talking to a lot of people about what they thought about it, and we all kind of agreed it was really amazing to have a pope speak really clear, fluent English. Like it was clear that this was his first language right to you on a baseball field. Like what gets more American than having this all on a baseball field? And they were even selling, hot dogs and everything. So I had a Chicago dog for the first time. Delicious. It completely fell apart in my lap. So I probably looked like a crazy person eating it, but it was very good. So yeah, you got this awesome boys choir too. They sang both the Peruvian national anthem and then the American anthem. And this boys choir, I think they're on like America's Got Talent or something like that from Chicago.
They're
They
from
were
a Catholic
incredible.
high school, right, in Chicago?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
These guys were
really neat.
awesome. I saw them walk into the stadium and then they killed it on the stage. So that was cool. And we had a bunch of little popes and cardinals. And I believe they were asked, would you have voted for Pope Leo if you were in the conclave? And the kid said, yes, I would have voted for Pope Leo in the conclave.
So
like, why? He's like, he seems like a good guy. It's awesome. And we had nuns in White Sox jerseys. I got to talk to some priests wearing White Sox.
Oh, that's the nun that was she's the big Loyola fan, the basketball fan.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So it was so cool. It was just a very, I'd say, wholesome event on a whole. Pope Leo's address, I have a part of it from, said, I'd like to send a special word of greeting to all the young people, those of you gathered together today, and many of you who are perhaps watching this greeting through technological means on the internet. As you grew up together, you may realize, especially having lived through the time of the pandemic, times of isolation, of great difficulty, sometimes even difficulties in your families. In our world today, sometimes it may be the context of your life has not given you the opportunity to live the faith, to live as participants in a faith community. And I'd like to take this opportunity to invite each one of you to look into your own hearts, to recognize that God is present and that perhaps in many different ways, God is reaching out to you, calling you, inviting you to know his son, Jesus Christ, through the scriptures, perhaps through a friend or a relative or a grandparent who might be a person of faith, but to discover how important it is for each one of us today to pay attention to the presence of God in our hearts, to that longing for love in our lives, for searching a true meaning, a true searching for finding the ways that we may be able to do something with our own lives to serve others. And in that service to others, we may find the coming together in friendship, building up of community. We too find true meaning in our lives.
Yeah, we watched it with our kids, and the teens were really struck by his quotes from St. Augustine, and they're like, "He really loves St. Augustine, Mom." Like, it's not, I'm like, "Well, he is Augustinian," but they that, and now they're like, "Oh, I should read the Confessions," because I'm like, okay, I hope that every young person in the United States who is like a little curious now and like, oh, Pope from Chicago, that they have the same reaction, or like, I should read Augustine. But yeah, that was something that struck me.
That would be delightful. Not sure how that much likely that is to happen, but
one of my favorite moments personally was you get this. I don't know if we can claim credit for this because Simon was up in the top deck getting stuff.
This is actually from Jonathan Liedl. So
okay. We got some
National Catholic Register. He had a great video.
Yeah. So here's a video of "Holy God, We Praise Thy Name" in White Sox Stadium.
Now, incidentally, it used to be Comiskey Park, and then they had another name, and now it's Wright Field or whatever. But the Pope referred to it as White Sox Park, and that's what I'm going to go with from now on.
No, I mean, the Pope has spoken.
I mean, He was sitting in his throne. I'm pretty sure it's infallible. So
It was ex cathedra. Oh, good to know.
So I was actually okay. So story of the day, they had mass actually right after this address. Cardinal Supich did it, and so the altar was right here. You can't see my cursor, but it's right in the middle of the screen. And Simon and I actually had tickets in the outfield, kind of by the right field bleachers. And as you could see, the screen would have been directly behind us, so it would have been really hard to see this address. As we're about to get into these seats, like right as we were about to walk down the stairs to them, this like really nice lady and her husband tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we had 2 tickets that no one claimed. It's right behind the third base line." And it's like, you guys, I was like, "Why'd you pick us?" Basically, that's crazy. Because we're all the way in the outfield, is all the way at third baseline. She's like, "Oh, you guys seem like nice guys." It's like, "Well, my mom thinks so." She's like, "All right, you like your mom, you're coming with me." So we had all the way down and we were able to get much better seats so we could see the address. I was the way they did communion too was really cool. And I have some pictures. I think we got up on the Instagram. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's just the LOOPcast on Instagram, where they sent out the army of priests that were there and some nuns to help distribute communion. And really major credit to Archdiocese of Chicago and White Sox organization. They really put on a great event, but they sent people and they had one person with them to make sure that people were consuming the Eucharist, which I thought was kind of a cool, smart move. And so, yeah, received right next to the third base dugout. And it was so cool to see the entire stadium kind of just filing in to go get the Eucharist. And yeah, Simon did make a joke. If we were out in these bleachers in right field, then Cardinal Supich would be celebrating Ad Orientem technically from our perspective. So got to give him credit for that one.
Nice, Simon.
Yeah. And I will say observations on the day, just being there as well. Pope Leo's address, I didn't think he said really anything crazy. I think what actually struck me, and I'm curious if other people were there, people in the chat, I felt like it wasn't really what he said. It was the tone that he used and the message that he delivered felt very like pastoral and calming. And when I was going around and doing interviews, what kept coming up was we want unity. We want unity. People are really excited to have a bridge builder, an Augustinian, someone that's really going to bring people together, be very thoughtful, be very pastoral. And funny, Cardinal Supich gave a homily at the Mass after. And it didn't surprise me. Yeah, a little different. Didn't surprise me completely, but he was getting in digs against Trump and immigration. And he said, these are people we invited here to care for our lawns, was actually a direct quote, which I kind of couldn't believe he said. But he was getting claps too, which like 2 pet peeves there. One, do not clap during the homily or even just during Mass in general. Like I'm just not a huge fan of it. It's not a performance. It's not why you're here. And then 2, for him to, it almost oddly made me feel good because I expect something like that from Cardinal Supich. But I feel like people probably wanted Pope Leo to say something about that. Or he was maybe nudged like, hey, speak on the condition of America or whatever. And he chose not to do that. And the tone that he gave was very calm, pastoral, unifying. And so it kind of, the contrast was so clear between the two that it kind of made me a little bit calmer, happier for potentially the future of the church. Who knows what happens here? But really tasteless. That was the only part of the day where I was just like, kind of, rolled my eyes with Supich there. But everything else was kind of awesome. Like it was just very wholesome. No protesters got in the way. Seemed like everyone had a great time. So well done, Archdiocese of Chicago.
And it wasn't a ghost town. You're saying there's a lot of people inside the stadium. I mean,
yeah, I think it was probably better attended than an average White Sox game. No offense.
Oh, we lost Josh.
There
he is.
Yeah, I don't know what attendance is like these days, but it was probably over half the stadium. It felt like was full. So thousands of people. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. And the assistant, was he the VP of the White Sox, gave a speech and he invited him to come do a first pitch. And he did a great job, whoever the vice president of the White Sox was. And then the Bulls announcer, play-by-play guy, was emceeing the event. And so we also have an initiative to invite the Pope home that I would like to make everyone aware of. I'm going to put it in the chat here. If you would like to be a part of the effort to bring him home, bring him back to Chicago, maybe he throws out a first pitch. That's what they suggest is like, hey, warm up your arm, Pope Leo, like come home and throw out a first pitch. Like we'd love to see you there. So I put it in the chat. It's catholicvote.org/Pope Leo. Go ahead and put your name there. It's going to be awesome when he does come. And hopefully Catholic Vote sends me to cover if he does come home, because I would love to go back. I had a great time in Chicago.
Well, we
So.
finished watching and the kids were like, Mom, if he comes to the United States, will we go to him? I'm like, I think we're going to have to. I think
Yeah, for sure.
we at least got to try and make it. So
It'd be
exciting.
sweet. It would be sweet. All right. Twilight Zone now. Josh, what do you got?
All right. What do we got here? I mean, I'm losing track of everything. I was so hyped up by this stuff. Well, I'm in Michigan these days, and Chinese scientists were accused of smuggling biological material into
Oh
the
my
United
gosh,
States.
Josh. You were ground zero.
Don't love
I mean,
that.
this is kind of crazy. Again, this is actually kind of what I want to get to is they were arrested at the Detroit airport after arriving on a flight from China. She's pursuing a degree in at Wuhan. They spent a year completing a project at the University of Michigan lab. They're accused of shipping biological material months ago to a laboratory staff. This is kind of what I want to talk to people about. So, like, obviously, there's wars going on in the world right now between Ukraine and Russia, and then Iran versus Israel. Now, actually, both the Ukraine and Israel had very successful operations recently where they used a ton of drones. And at Ukraine, it was really, I mean, I'm not trying to take sides on the war, okay? But it's impressive from a military standpoint that Ukraine was able to send so many drones into Russia to take out, fighter jets and tanks and all this other kind of stuff. I think they destroyed like 1 out of every 4 of Russia's fighter jets. I mean, it was an impressive operation. It was actually kind of scary to think of how all these drones. I mean, you're sending drones into a foreign country. You're not even having to, you don't have to have pilots piloting ships. You just send these drones. They go out there and they take out military equipment and assets. And then Israel did the same too. And Israel, in fact, did it inside. They had inside Iran. They must have had somebody working on their behalf. So Israeli intelligence was able to convince maybe some Iranian general to allow these drones to be launched from inside Iran and to take out other targets, take out, top generals, and this kind of stuff. And so this is what I'm getting at. Am I concerned as much with what's going on in Israel and Iran? I mean, I guess, yeah, I'm concerned. Why would I not be concerned? But I'm not really considering it a priority, of course, because it doesn't involve me. And I certainly don't want my 3 sons fighting in a war.
Yes, it
in the
does.
Middle East.
I completely push back. It absolutely does.
Hold on a
funding
second.
everything.
Hold on.
Let him finish.
I don't want my sons fighting on any side of that war in the Middle East, is my point. And I don't want them fighting in the Ukraine. But what I'm getting, and I'd like, yes, detachment from the Middle East. But what I'm trying to say is, like, what keeps me up at night is not what's going on in Israel or Iran. What's keeping me up at night is actually China. So you've had this circumstance where these scientists were trying to smuggle in, biological hazardous material that could, damage the food supply. Yeah, but have you ever noticed that there's large swaths of Chinese-owned land very close to U.S. military bases? Could they not also launch a series of drone strikes against our military assets? Like, that to me is a bigger concern than a bunch of bloodthirsty neocons trying to convince me I need to be involved in Israel. Like, no, what I need to be involved in is protecting the United States of America right now. Actually, that's what I need to be involved with. I need to be less involved with what's going on in the Middle East and Europe, frankly.
Yeah, I agree in order of principle, no doubt. Yeah, it was a toxic fungus to attack wheat, barley, maize, and rice.
Yeah. Hey, I just found that map that Josh is talking about. So the breakdown of Chinese-owned farmland in the United States. You could throw that up there too, because it's a pretty stunning visual. And this has been confirmed by multiple sources. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's ruh-roh reggae. Not good.
Yep. It's not
Look
great.
at almost that farmland, and Fort Hood, Texas, is massive. It is a massive military. And then you can see North Carolina where the Marines are. Marines are in Pendleton too, San Diego. Look at all the Chinese land owned by where the Norfolk, Virginia, where is the largest naval base in the world.
What would it take to just either like compensate them out or confiscate?
Well, you can certainly pass a law, and say that the Chinese no longer can own any land in the United States. Like literally, like you say, because of different subterfuge. I mean, I remember when my friend, they had they owned a building that was within eyesight of the Pentagon, and right after 9/11, they're like, yeah, no, sorry, goodbye. You have to sell the building. You can force them to sell. I mean, the United States is not beholden to any other country. You can say, no, I'm sorry. You have shown yourself to be aggressive in nature, and we're not going to, again, there's no reason we can't force them out. Like, I'm sorry, like, sell it to someone else, but you can't own it.
Let's do it.
Erica.
Yeah, mine's kind of dark as well. I wanted to highlight this. In Nigeria over the weekend, we had another massacre of Christians. This was absolutely horrific. Over 100 people were slaughtered in this one village. Many of them were actually refugees from the northern part of the country who were fleeing Christian persecution by Boko Haram. So Pope Leo brought attention to it. I'm sorry, 200 people, not 100. Brutally killed in Yelwada in the Guma local government area over the night of the 13th and 14th. They were sheltered by the local Catholic mission, and they were sheltering in place. Whole families were locked in their homes, and the homes burned down. It was absolutely tragic. And as we highlight, we're talking about peace in the world and peace in Iran and Israel, Ukraine, Russia. Just to remember that Nigeria has seen over 62,000 Christian martyrs in the last 25 years, which is an astonishing number. And they've been suffering through persecution. They've also been growing. The church in Nigeria is also growing. People are converting in record numbers. And just the reminder that, as bad as things can seem over here in the West, there are Christians, our brothers and sisters, who are giving everything for the name of Jesus, and to pray for them, to pray for peace, and to remind our political leaders that that we have, when we can, to welcome refugees from those Christian communities and to remember them. So pray for Nigeria.
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up of the conversions being so big there, and some people in the chat were talking about in America we're seeing our own surge in conversions. Like,
Right.
I don't think all the instability is unrelated, or the persecution, or the lack of security is unrelated. Like, people are now, it's almost forced upon you to have to find something real.
That's amazing, because I actually have a deep dive video that I just finished the script for on the rise in conversions in the West, and also the rise of the trans. I call it the battle of the trans. So we have the transcendent and we have the transgender. So watch for that video coming whenever Simon recovers from his Chicago trip. We'll get that out to you. And can I ask a question, actually, of the chat, if people are listening? I'm torn between my next deep dive. So we've got the conversions coming up. And then I am playing around with this AI business. And I have two directions I could go. One is, are there demons in ChatGPT? So like spiritual dangers of AI? That's one direction we could go. Or what are the jobs that won't exist? Yes. Okay. So yes is that. And then the other direction I was thinking of, though, was what jobs will not exist in 2 years as AI agents are rolled out last week. And Sam Altman just told us that the world has ended. So
do that in about a month or two. But
okay, I'll do. Okay, got it. Well, Josh answered it for me. Thanks, boss.
Boom.
This is like choose your own adventure.
I love it.
Very fun.
All right, Pogo.
All right, mine. So the Dodgers have come a long way during Pride Month. Let's put it this way. So I saw that Clayton Kershaw had to wear the Pride logo on his head, and funny, I did a deep dive on where Pride went. Largely, if people like to see that on YouTube,
which is really good. Everyone should check that video out.
That was very fun.
In the chat.
So LA Dodgers
reduced, right?
Yeah, and so LA Dodgers Pride logo here, and then he wrote I believe that's Genesis 9:12-16. And for people curious what that is, and God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I make between you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of the flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on earth." So, people online, of course, got angry about this. Here's one of the takes I got is Clayton Kershaw will forever be a Dodger great, but it's things like this that make him a lot less likable. Just wear the hat, be a tolerant Christian, and accept that there are others who believe differently like you. Just wear the hat.
Oh
Quite a
my God.
sentence.
Just wear the hat. Just wear what I believe. You're not
yeah,
allowed to
I've,
believe.
And these are
what
the
you
same
believe.
people who pretend like they would be the one guy in that picture that's not saluting, the Der Fuhrer.
yeah, right.
Right? I mean, they're
Whatever.
so celebratory of the one guy who's bucking the crowd, but then
Just wear the hat. Just bake the cake. What else we got? Just let the drag queen read to your kids. There's a lot of just do this, and then you can be a good tolerant Christian, the one that I like that has no bite to them and no backbone. So I'd like to give a shout out to Clayton here. I love this, and I will say on a whole, I feel like for reasons I discussed in the deep dive that the pride movement has just completely deflated this year. I know that it's still going on in small quantities. Actually, I saw a lot of them kind of involved in the No Kings protest.
Yeah, a lot of rainbows at No
It's just
King.
hilarious. Like every flag but the American flag was represented at those protests. Mexican flag, the LGBTQ flag. But shout out to Clayton. I think this is disgusting, and good for him for standing up. So that's what I got.
Like it.
Good episode, gang. We're working a little cut up of the experience at Chicago White Sox. What is it? Chicago White Sox Stadium?
White Sox Park now.
White Sox Park.
The Pope said so.
He said so, so it must be true. White Sox Park. So working on a cut up of that. If you want to see that, you can follow on YouTube or Instagram. I'm going to be making a video on Instagram. And we got a couple up already, so go ahead and follow us there. But thank you to our sponsors today, Home Title Lock and Homeschool Connections, for making the show possible. Really enjoyed doing this show for you guys. If you want to support us, you can go ahead and leave a review. Apple Podcasts and Spotify is where you can do that. You can email me at loopcast@catholicvote.org. You can join our initiative to invite the Pope home. That would be very helpful if you want to put your name on that. Link in the description. But pray for us, of course. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. We'll see you guys ready to rock on the next episode on Wednesday. Peace.